Guys, so I wanted to talk about 1 year of ownership of my X-T4. Well, actually it's a little bit more, but let's watch on and see what I think the good things are and the not so good things are. So one thing that brought me to Fujifilm cameras was the tactile nature of them, and you can see that the exposure triangle is presented on the camera in the form of dials. You have individual dials for exposure compensation, ISO setting, aperture, you have an aperture ring, and of course obviously the shutter speed, but these dials are all there. You don't have a digital display, and it makes shooting with the camera a lovely experience, and I think this is something that's sorely missing from some modern cameras, which are the style we would call PSAM, where they'll have a program mode, aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, dial, and everything else is just buttons. And that's one of the main things that attracted me to Fujifilm. I think the next thing is probably the film simulations. They're quite unique in Fujifilm cameras, and although it means you can use things like the JPEG straight out of camera and get very classic looks, you know, they look for everything. I love classic chrome, but I love a Turner for videography. I love classic chrome for documentary and street style, and in fact it encouraged me to tweak that in Lightroom so that I could create my own unique styles that were actually based on classic chrome and classic neg and different film simulations like that, and I've replicated to a certain extent on other camera makes, but I've not got as close as I could to with Fuji. There is something unique about the colour science, and again it harks back to that day of film, and I like the fact that I can get a film-like look out of the camera if I so wish, because I can add grain, colour chrome effect. I can tweak so many things in camera that you just don't get the fine-tuned controls on other camera manufacturers. Fuji give you that, and it's all part of the experience of using the camera. So we touched on video capabilities before, and although I bought the camera primarily for stills, the X-T4 also has fantastic video capability. It has an extremely high bit rate of up to 400 megabits a second. You probably never use it unless you want broadcast quality, because the 100 megabits a second is absolutely fine. You've got internal 422 10-bit. You've got a Turner that works straight out of the camera without color grading. But if you wish to do color grading, you've got log mode as well. You've got a fully articulating flip screen, which makes recording your pieces to camera very easy. And you've got dual card slots, and the advantage of the dual card slots is that you can record photos to one, video to the other, or you can have one back the other up. It's up to you the way you actually do it. You also have some great slow motion modes. I think you've got 4K 60 without, I think it's a very slight crop or no crop. I think it's 1.1, but it's a very, very minor. The standard 4K, no crop. And I think you've got 1080p at 240 frames a second for some really good slow mode, quite a decent quality. You've got, I think, all intra if you want high quality codecs, or you've got long op as well for, you know, more standard stuff. You've just got so many different options there, and to be honest, because I use the camera more for stills, I'm only now recently getting into videography, cinematography, what you want to call it, and I'm now starting to scratch the surface of what the camera can do. Now you've got a very interesting interface. You've got a full touchscreen interface on the camera. And you've got touch autofocus. Now you can either use the eyepiece and move your thumb round on the touch screen to control where the focus point is. You've got a lovely button on the front of the camera which is the autofocus mode. So again, back to that tactile nature of the camera. You've got zone autofocus, which is an area on the screen. You've got tracking autofocus, which is more for continuous autofocus mode, where you can track a subject, you can touch the subject and track it. And you've got single point, which can be quite a big block of the screen, or could be quite a small block. And you've also got the eye autofocus, which is good for pieces to camera, as I'm doing now. And the autofocus is fairly competent, but it's not best in class, but we'll come on to that. Now, while the autofocus is pretty good on the X-T4, it does have its problems. Sometimes it can not pick up a face properly, it'll mistake something else for the face. It gets confused with glasses, not clear ones, mostly sunglasses, so if you're doing pieces to camera, don't wear sunglasses, because if for some reason it can't lock on. It seems to confuse it and it doesn't then drop back to face detect mode, which it should. Hopefully that could be fixed in future firmware updates. Essentially though, other than that, it's pretty good if you have the right autofocus mode on. So you could have zone autofocus if you wanted to focus on a sort of large area of something. You see you're focusing on a plant. If you're in very close on something and you want to focus on a very small point, single point. And we're talking more about the constant autofocus performance. The single autofocus is marvelously good. Of course, the camera has focus peaking, so you can use manual focus for very fine tuning. But it's the constant autofocus that's got a little bit, a few little quirks to it where it'll sometimes get confused and it'll hunt a bit. And it's not quite up there with the Sonys and the Canons. But the single point, if you're just doing photography, it's more or less spot on every time. As long as you're in the right mode, it'll pick faces up and it'll work really, really well. But it's just a minor little gripe that I've got, but I've never really had a major issue with it, just now and again. And strangely, as much as the XS10 is based on the same hardware, the XS10 seems to be just a shade better. I don't know why, but after the X-T4, and the X100V is just something different. As I say, I'm going to talk about that in another video. But if talking about the interchangeable lens cameras, this is why I own both these cameras. The XS10 was just like, when it was announced, I was like, I'll have to have that. It's just what I wanted, flip screen. I sold an X-T30 to get an XS10. I do wish I had an X-T4 that was silver and black, but they were not in stock when I bought one, so I had to get the black one. So, but yeah, silver and black's the best in the styling for the camera. So overall, it's a very pleasing camera to use, and I've loved owning it. But when I became ill with COVID, and I'm still recovering now, there were a few issues that I had with a camera like this, and I haven't been able to use the camera, which is the weight. I've used my XS10, which I'm filming this on now, a lot more, which is a more traditional styled PSAM style camera, but it's very, very light. And the X-T4 is a heavy camera for an APS-C camera. It's very well built, it's weather resistant and dust resistant, so you can take it out into the elements as long as you've got a weather resistant lens on it. But I have found the weight to be a bit of a problem more recently. But as I get stronger and as I slowly recover, again, that'll fade a little bit. Another issue with the X-T4, I would say, is a minor gripe, is the grip. It's not very deep for such a heavy camera. And again, when you compare it to models such as the XS10, which has an incredible grip, or the XH1, which again has a really, really good grip, you can see that the grip is a bit of a shortcoming on the camera. It's okay, but if you want to hold the camera for extended periods, it's quite difficult. And again, when you've got, you're quite weak recovering as I am, I'm not very strong, can't hold heavy things easily, I really start to notice the problems with the grip. But it doesn't detract from the camera. It's still, a really good camera. And one other annoying feature is the flaps on the side. I would prefer the flip-out ones that the XS10's got, versus these rubberized ones that are on dangly sort of rubber attachments, so they just hang. They don't instill confidence and they could easily snap off, so I wish they'd made those a little bit more secure. I understand why they've done it, it's for the weather resistance and that's why they're rubberized, but they are a little bit of a pain. So the camera is just a fantastic camera, and to be honest, it's the same as the XS10 in terms of image quality, because they all use the X-Trans 4 sensor, which is the 26 megapixel sensor, and I think it's on the X100V's got that, the X-T30. A lot of cameras have it, and they're all going to come out with similar image quality. And for street photography and documentary style photography that I do, or filming pieces to camera, I have to say that I've loved owning it. But as I say, I've used my XS10 more recently, and the only difference with the XS10 is that it's not retro styled, and it's only 8-bit for the video. It's not 10-bit. It's got 10-bit external, but not 10-bit internal. So there is a little bit of a difference there. But from the point of view of using a turner externally or internally, I very rarely do grading at the minute. So I don't really notice the difference, to be fair. I think once I'm back in the seat and, you know, a few months' time and I'm starting to really learn and push the limits of the camera, then I think I will start to utilise those extra benefits. But at the minute it's made me think about the camera and reflect on it differently. But if you want to get into Fujifilm, you know, there is the X-T4 if you want something smaller and lighter. If you don't mind, if you want the retro, if you're not keen on the retro styling, the XS10 is the same quality, just a more traditional layout of camera. But if you don't mind the extra weight, you want something that's weather resistant, do you want dual card slots? Did I mention the Ibis? Yeah, the XS10 and the X-T4 have Ibis. You want Ibis and all of those little features, and you love that tactile nature that you get, especially with the X100V. I love my X100V. I'll do a talk on a year of ownership of that next, I think. Yeah, you'll like the X-T4 because it's more than just a camera. It's an experience to use it. And I think that's what makes using the X-T4 so good. Oh, just want to tweak the ISO, you turn the dial and you can see exactly where you are. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed my little talk about the X-T4 and why I like it. And please do discuss in the comments below and ask any questions. And I'll catch you all very soon with a new video. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. See you all later. Bye.